So we felt like he wasn't progressing, so we decided that we would just bring him home, and he didn't like it. He couldn't talk, he couldn't communicate with anybody, and he was not getting any better. So we brought him home, and a friend of mine that I was doing a job for, Terry Henley, came by and he saw how pitiful Joey was, just laying in bed, not very responsive. And he asked me, he says, "Is there anything I can do for Joey?" And I said, "Well, you know, he's such a big Charger fan." And Terry played football for Auburn, and he knows a lot of people. And he said, I'm gonna work on something, I'll call you in a few days.
His dad said he just loves the San Diego Chargers. Now, where this kid came upon that passion of the Chargers, I don't know, but he said if I could find some way to get him some posters or something. And so I said, well, why don't we take him to training camp, you know? And he said, do you know somebody there that could help us?
And a few days went by and he called me and said, I'm working on something and I'll give you a call back.
I said, I'll call Mike Fuller, and Lionel James was playing there too, two Auburn players, and Mike Fuller, one of my former teammates.
And he had talked to a dear friend of mine, who is a friend now, Pat Rogers, who was a public relations secretary at the Chargers.
Through Mike Fuller contacting my office and Terry Henley helping Darby and Joey get out here, that's how it all started. And of course, being in public relations, it would go through my office.
And about 3 days later, he called me and said, "Me and you and that boy are going to California." And so we went, and I told him, I said, "Well, I'll pay for it." And he said, "No, I got people that want to send Joey to California."
It doesn't surprise me a bit that Terry Henley would arrange, you know, the get-together and the transportation and all the logistics to get Joey out to San Diego at the time when it happened. And Terry's just got such a good heart. He's just a terrific philanthropist. Terry's about 5 years older than I am, but I remember Terry being at Auburn when I was in high school. And I remember, you know, hearing Terry's name announced on the loudspeaker many times in the stadium. And I know Terry gives, you know, his time and love to a lot of individuals still to this day. And Joey's just one of many that Terry, you know, puts himself forward to.
And well, when we first went out there in August of '85, we stayed in this, like, I guess you'd say almost in the penthouse at this hotel. And then Terry, he even ordered room service for that. Well, we only went for a day, you know, because it was only Terry, my dad, and me that went, and so we only went for a day because they both had to get back to work. And but when we went there, see, I got to go out to the training camp.
Darby pushed him in the wheelchair, and I saw this frail young man in this wheelchair, and he sat there looking straight ahead, motionless, tunnel vision, and I thought, oh, dear me, what sadness is there with this young man?
And in talking to Terry, he said, we out here with Joey Hale and his family, and he wanted to come to San Diego. He could have went anywhere else he wanted to go, and he wanted to come to San Diego. So I said, oh, okay, I'll go over and talk.
Yeah, the thing that I remember most of all is him being in that wheelchair and slumped over, and those big athletes coming out and walking by him and, you know, giving him a high five. He barely could lift his hands and things like that. And when they got by, he told his dad, I'll walk out next time. I'll walk next time.
And I also got to eat lunch with the players, you know, but See, I mean, was just, kind of like a cafeteria type setting, and like at a college. And but these football players, I mean, they have these big old portions, or I mean, me and my dad have these little kitty sauce plates.
Darby was wonderful. He came in, we introduced ourselves, and he went around to an area where he could sit at the table and got Joey some lunch, and he fed Joey. And Coach Coryell came in and introduced himself and talked with Darby.
I never will forget the head coach, Don Coryell. He made us sit at the head table with him to eat. And he put his arm around me, and he told me, he said, "I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come visit us." And I thought, hey, this was great, I mean, but he was so sincere about that. And then Pat had us, she said, "I want you to meet somebody. He's got to go to meetings." So I rolled Joe in a wheelchair and tapped him on the shoulder, and it was Dan Fouts. And he reached around and said, "Hello, Joey, my name is Dan Fouts." And both of us lit up, I mean, he was a pretty big star at that time.
And Lionel is so small and cute, you wonder how he ever played football to begin with, but they became buddies, and it was really neat to see them. And they've continued, as you know, this friendship.
Well, Lionel was actually a freshman, and of course, in '81 he's a sophomore, my first year, and as you're looking for players and coming into a new situation like we were, you're looking for leaders. And Lionel was a great leader on my football team, and I often wondered why he was, why he was like he was, because he was a model, is what he was. And I finally came to the conclusion that he had always had to work upstream because of being small and people telling him he couldn't do this, couldn't do that. So, and we put that first team through a lot of tough sessions on the practice field and off-season program, and Lionel was always a leader and always one that you could count on. And if you wanted to point out a good example in front of the team, you could always point out Lionel. You can't put on paper what Lionel meant to his team. And I mean, it's the intangibles and the things that you can't measure.
This draft, everybody looks at you and they put you in the computer, and the computer spits out the perfect athlete that comes out and is going to be a dominant figure in the NFL. It's not that way.
He always exceeded your expectations. And you can't imagine what it's like to have somebody like that on your football team that's, a great player and a leader, and is going to make big plays in the game that help you win every week. There's three things that you look for. Where are they mentally? Where are they physically? And where are they spiritually? And the three tie together. Lionel was as close to being exactly what you wanted in all three of those phases as you could possibly get. And that's what, that's one of the things that set him apart, and that was one of his strengths. He was smart. Physically, he was small in stature, but was a great athlete. Being small didn't have anything to do with his athletic ability, because he's a great athlete. Could dunk a basketball at 5'7", 5'6", and spiritually, as far as I mean, he was as strong as any individual that we ever coached.
My oldest brother had got hit by a car when he was 8 years old, and he was in that body cast like their dad. So I had seen all of that, and I know the fight that it takes to get out of that. And then really, you know, you can say all the stories, that ain't real pretty, looking at a person that has to go through that. And I remember seeing my brother go through that wheelchair, learning how to walk, learning how to talk, and that's tough when you see the frustration on people's faces, and when they're trying to say something and do something and really can't do it like they want to do it. So I saw a lot of their family in my family. All right, and you know, mom and dad, brother, sister, and really everybody's looking out for Joey, and all Joey wants to do is to be left alone. You know, or not necessarily left alone, but let me do it myself. Let me try it first. All right, let me try it. So when I saw that, it turned out at that time, they had moved my position from running back to wide receiver. I never played wide receiver in my life. So now I got to learn the wide receiver, and I got to learn this, and I'm like frustrated because I can't get that position down. All right, but in going through that frustration for me in 1985, and I see him, he did more for me than I ever did for him.